All right, folks, I did it again, unfortunately, or I guess in this case, quite fortunately. I sat through the boring parts so that you wouldn't have to. I started streaming question period a little bit earlier than I normally would, and they were doing their normal jibber-jabby, back and forth nonsense, questions without answers, raising silly points of order, but there was actually a really good amount of takeaways that I am very excited to share with you today in this video, along with the question period highlights. The walls are closing in for Justin Trudeau. The Liberals are going, boo-hoo-hoo, why would you call the cops on us? It's not fair. It's a breach of democracy and Canadians should be worried. And to that, I say, and the Conservatives have been saying, it's not a breach of democracy. We have tried, the Conservatives have tried, sorry, I was paraphrasing the Conservatives for a second. The Conservatives have tried to take this into committee. They've tried to raise motions on the House floor, and it's denied because of all of these greasy coalitions. So like I've said before, Pierre Poilievre went down into the cellar of Parliament, dug up this rule book, wiped off all the dust, and it said that you can take this to the RCMP, which is something that he's done, which is why the RCMP has begun their investigation into Justin Trudeau with the $400 million slush fund, along with a couple of other scandals. So we're going to be taking a look at that because the Conservatives came out guns blazing today, and it was everything but boring. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And I do have a bit of a message about your health because I've actually been taking my health a little bit more seriously. There has been a major uptick in whatever version of the blip is circulating right now, and the reality is it's just a part of our human population. Many of you may have just breezed through the experience, but I personally know a lot of people that got their ass kicked, and I'm talking about young, healthy people. And I personally don't think this is going to happen to me because I am taking care of my body. I'm stocked up on homeopathic remedies, such as natural enzymes to keep my body on total defense. Whether or not you got any of the shots, the spike protein is likely something that you don't want in your body because it can cause brain fog, it can cause blood clots, myocarditis, and even affect your lung health. This is why I've partnered with the wellness company because they offer a preventative solution to assist the body in spike protein elimination with Dr. Peter McCullough's Spike Detox Trio protocol. The best time to take this is right before you go on a form of travel or if you hear that there's a new wave of something happening. This protocol is being used around the world by many doctors and it's 100% natural, which is the best part. If you recently had a bad bout with this whole thing, then the wellness company medical board, they do recommend a 3 to 6 month protocol for a detox. Use my code sunshine link down below in the description or the pinned comment below to get 10% off every single purchase plus free shipping for those living inside of Canada and the United States. Now, without further ado, let's get into this. So the first clip that we're going to be taking a look at is a Liberal MP, Kevin Lamoureux, right? The rat of the Liberal Party. He is just babbling on and on. And as you're going to see for just a little bit amount of time, kind of talking in circles. And then, out of nowhere, Conservatives just pull a Hail Mary and they call a point of order. But it's not for the reason that you would think. Or maybe it is. Here's the clip.
We've had the Auditor General look at the issue. We've had hours and hours and hours of debate, Mr. Speaker, in our standing committee on the issue. And for the Conservatives now, because they want their cheap political points in this game, they are now saying, well, what's the next step? Well, let's get unredacted documents.
I think we have a point of order from the honourable member.
Thank goodness.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to give the translators some time to ease their ears. It's quite voluminous what we're hearing across the aisle.
I appreciate the thought for our translators, but I don't think that's really a call for order.
When stupidity meets ridiculousness. That's awesome. And to be honest, normally I wouldn't really agree with that type of behavior of just these silly points of order and kind of turning it into a circus, but I mean, I'm like this far deep into coffee right now, and I love this. And I think that this brings a lot more eyes and attention into politics, which is very important. And it doesn't matter from what party you stand with in support of. We need more people to pay attention to politics because we need more people to vote with those critical decisions. You have a massive generation of younger people that are eligible to vote that don't care about politics. I mean, I've never cared, which is why I know I've never voted. I'm part of the problem. I get it, right? But now I'm trying to make up for it. And I feel like I'm doing somewhat of a decent job. This next clip now that we're going to take a look at is the Bloc has an incredible zinger. So later on, while Liberal MP Kevin Lamoureux was talking in circles, it was then the Bloc's turn. And here's what they had to say about what he was, or how, I guess, he was acting.
There is a significant risk that the motion could be interpreted as a circumvention of normal investigative processes and, please listen to this, charter protections. Now, this isn't me saying it, this is the RCMP. This is the body that you want to give the information to. My God, how much simpler can it be to understand that? I don't understand how they don't understand how simple it is, this issue, Mr. Speaker. The reason why they don't understand is because they choose not to, because they rather play political games. They don't care about Canadians. They only
Byron with the two. Anyone else think he looks like Shrek's cousin?
Mr. Speaker.
You better not be talking about my boy Todd.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Frankly, what I'm hearing, it's a bit like a 5-year-old telling his mother, listen, Mum, it doesn't matter if I stole a bit of money from the piggy bank because, I got, sand thrown at me by another kid. That's what it sounds like. It makes no sense.
And then, in a kind of strange turn of events, you had the Liberals say that the RCMP, in fact, doesn't need any of the documents that the Conservatives have submitted or are trying to get submitted. It's just all very confusing. And the Liberals are... Here's kind of the summary of everything that's going on. The Liberals are trying to cover up all of their criminal behavior because they have been, getting rich off of their numbered companies and the Green Slush Fund contracting their numbered companies for jobs that they just either aren't worthy of, for just fraudulent invoices. And it's all kind of being exposed right now. So let's take a quick look at this.
What you're doing is you're walking on individual rights and processes that have been well established, and the RCMP and the Auditor General, both independent offices, have made that very clear. If the member would like, I can share the letter with her.
Need to remind I just need to remind individuals to actually come to the chair.
Hilarious.
We're talking and having this debate. Questions and comments? The honour for Fleet.
Byron with the two. Finally, Gollum is done talking. You spoke too soon.
Mr. Chair.
Brian, sorry. You spoke too soon, Brian.
The question is, if there's wrongdoing, somebody needs to be punished. There's allegations, of course, but nothing has been proven. But to my honourable colleague, when the RCMP tells you it doesn't need the material that the Conservatives want produced, when the RCMP tells you they can't use the material that would be provided if the Conservative motion were to succeed, what should we then take from that about how best to proceed with the kind of investigation that people seem to call for?
Parliamentary Secretary, Government.
The Conservatives got pushed into a corner, and
Simple answer.
they had no other option but to go to the police.
Our independent offices, our independent agencies to do what it is they're supposed to do. We have an RCMP agency which is recognized around the world. Second to, I would suggest to you, no other agency, Mr. Speaker, or law enforcement group. They know their stuff. They know what they're doing. I think Canadians have more confidence in the RCMP as an institution than they would have on the Conservative Party on this file at the very least. And I'm trying to be kind, Mr. Speaker, here. I would suggest to you that we let individuals do the job that they're supposed to be doing. On this issue, allow more discussion in standing committees. That's why we have standing committees, to be able to go through the documents. That's where our Auditor General has made presentation, the RCMP have made presentation. It provides all forms of opportunities to ensure accountability
And I don't think many people have
transparency.
confidence
It's up
in
to
the
the
RCMP.
Conservative Party in particular, a little concerned about the Bloc, but Conservative Party in
Not
particular,
anymore, at
to
least.
stop with the political gains at the cost of the interests of Canadians and start looking at ways in which we can be supporting Canadians, not playing games with Canadians at a great expense.
And then in the craziest turn of events, you have a Conservative MP that stands up and actually acknowledges the Freedom Convoy, or I guess the Emergencies Act, and how that was illegally invoked, because Liberals are going around touting that, hey, we're standing up for democracy, and what the Conservatives are doing by bringing this to the RCMP is a breach of rights and freedoms of Canadians. And that's when the Conservative MP gets up and says, what about the illegal invocation of the Emergencies Act? Now, don't believe what I have to say. Let's take a look at what the Conservative MP has to say.
Speaker, a couple clarifications and then a simple question for the member opposite. First of all, the Liberal government is pretending to care about people's charter rights, which, would be new if it was believable. But this is the government that has violated all of them. Freedom of expression, mobility rights. Let's talk about the Illegal Emergency Measures Act, on and on. So that.
Ooh.
The member also alluded to the fact that there's no other...
Hey, whoa. That never gets brought up by Conservative MP. Throw some freaking W's in the chat, man. That is phenomenal. Shout out to Marilyn for actually saying that, because a lot of Conservative MPs have just ignored the fact that the Emergencies Act was illegally invoked. They don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They're going to get called deniers by Liberals, blah, 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 blah. You know how it goes, right? Greasy game of politics. Shout out to her for actually saying that, man. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Good job, Marilyn. You have just gained more respect from Canadians. I hope you gain more respect from me for saying that. That's phenomenal.
And that's why we have amendments and sub-amendments. Well, I have not had a chance, Mr. Speaker, to speak to this privileged debate, and I would love to do so. So those are my clarifications. My question is this. The Auditor General says there's 186 conflicts of interest with the $400 million given to people's companies. The whistleblower said there was criminality involved. If the Liberal government really believes there's nothing to see here, why won't they produce the papers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government has cooperated and produced the papers. That's been produced, just like Brian Mulroney and other levels of government have done in the past. The issue for the Conservative Party...
No, the government's not cooperating.
There's a redaction in certain aspects of the papers. Well, that happens in government. And now the Conservatives have said, well, we're going to force those unredacted papers, and we're going to go against what the RCMP are saying. We're going to go against what the Auditor General is saying. Why? Because they want to play a political game of political cheap shots. That is the reason why. And I look forward to hearing the member's comments. And I would encourage every member in opposition, when they stand up, to start their remarks by indicating that they do not support the recommendations or the concerns that have been raised by the RCMP, the Auditor General, and then through that recognize that they do not support the Charter of Rights and our Constitution. Because if they did, they would be listening to what those independent offices have to say, Mr. Speaker. And if they're not going to listen to what those independent offices have to say, then don't try to tell me that you're supporting the Charter of Rights. I won't buy that.
Okay, it's always government employees that have the excuse of, well, that's just orders. That's just the way it is. That's just how things go. Look, dude. Look, Kevin. Look, Gollum. That's not what happens. The Prime Minister and the higher ups, because there are pretty much everybody in government is higher up than you, Kevin, has the ability to either file to redact certain information, especially the Prime Minister. under the guise of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever he wants to. That can include information that should not be redacted, but that is redacted to protect himself from, criminal prosecution, criminal charges. So no, it's not that. Yeah, sometimes in terms of national security, some things are redacted for the sake of protecting Canada. Yeah, some. Not $400 million slush fund that has been proven by whistleblowers, that's been proven. Oh, how many Randys are there? There's only one. But somehow he duplicated himself. That's proven that these liberal insiders are sending some of that $400 million of slush fund money to their own companies that are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 LTD companies, right? This is freaking insane. Are you kidding me? And he's just saying, well, that's just how it is. Get out of here. Nobody is buying that. Nobody. And that wraps up what's supposed to be boring stuff that happens in Parliament before question period. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that in fact wasn't boring. Question period then started. So it was one hell of a day. Now let's take a look at just how hard the Conservatives were bashing the Liberals to go after this green slush fund and basically explain why they've gone to the police. Here we go. Oral questions. Questions Honorable Andrew Scheer.
After 9 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, Canada has experienced a shocking rise in anti-Semitism and an increase in hate crimes of 165%. His divisive politics, where he pits one group of Canadians against another, only makes matters worse. It also doesn't help that he takes years to list terrorist groups to the list of banned organizations, allowing them to fundraise and recruit here in Canada. This one should be easy, though. The Houthis are attacking civilian ships and innocent civilians. Our allies have already banned them. So will the government do the right thing and list this group as a terrorist organization today?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, we unequivocally condemn the acts we saw in Vancouver that were launched by Sami Doon. Acts like burning the flag, chanting death to Canada, acts like denying the events of October 7th and celebrating terrorism are unacceptable in this country. With respect to Sami Doon, we heard the Minister of Public Safety reference this yesterday. We've asked for an expedited review because decisions of this importance are always made on the advice of national security agencies.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
They continue to drag their feet, Mr. Speaker, but there's been another blow to the Prime Minister's carbon tax scheme. A new report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer shows yet again that Canadians are worse off under this tax. Here's what the total bill will be when the NDP Liberals finish quadrupling this tax. It'll cost people in Ontario $1,400, $1,500 in Newfoundland, and a whopping $2,000 in Saskatchewan. Canadians are already struggling with higher costs, higher groceries, and higher mortgage rates. The last thing they need is another bill from a useless carbon tax. If the government's so sure that Canadians support the tax, why not let the people decide in a carbon tax election?
That's the best way. Put some W's in the chat for Scheer. That's the best way.
Minister
Let the people decide.
Climate change.
Mr. Speaker, let me read you the first paragraph of the PBO's report. And I quote, considering only the fiscal impact of federal fuel charge, PBO estimates that average household in each of the backstop provinces in 2030-31 will see a net gain, receiving more from the Canada Carbon Rebate than the total amount they paid in federal fuel charge and related GST, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition should apologize to Canadians for misleading them all these months.
Oh my goodness. Frig.
Colleagues on all sides, please, I'm going to ask you to not take the floor unless the Speaker recognizes you. The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
The minister might want to read the rest of the report because in the quote he cited, he focused on a very key word, only the direct costs. When you factor in all the economic costs, it costs the Canadian household $1,400. Canadians are net losers under this carbon tax scheme, and this minister knows it. Right. So, if he's so sure that Canadians want this government to keep quadrupling the tax, why not let the people decide in a carbon tax election?
There you go, man. That's the best way. Let the people decide.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Let me read you another paragraph from the report, Mr. Speaker. Moreover, in 2030-31, for all backstop provinces, we estimate that the average household in each income quintile will see a net gain, except for average household in the highest income quintile, Mr. Speaker. You know what the Leader of the Opposition is doing? He wants to take money away from the middle class and poorer Canadians to protect his rich CEO friends. That's what he's doing, Mr. Speaker.
That's quite literally not true.
The Honourable Member from Foothills.
The Minister is trying very hard to get Canadians not to understand the details. But the details are, and the facts are, that the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed what Canadians already know.
Exactly.
They're being robbed by a carbon tax, which is driving up the cost of groceries, of gas, and everyday essentials. In fact, a family in Prince Edward Island will pay almost $1,200 a year when the NDP Liberals quadruple the carbon tax. Canadians don't support the carbon tax. We know 10 provinces don't support the carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister listen to Canadians and call a carbon tax election?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
The member talks about the agricultural sector. Well, let's talk about the climate impacts on the agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker. Droughts in 2021 resulted in 27% decline in Canada's grain production. Over the last decade, over 200 Canadian farmers have experienced cost increases and revenue loss from climate impacts, Mr. Speaker. This member and this party never talked.
Dude, all the farmers complaining about the carbon tax.
Farmers on the price of food in Canada. They want to try and make us believe that climate change isn't happening. It is happening.
What a disingenuous representation.
Mr. Speaker.
That is blatant missing disinformation. That's just lying.
The Minister is either living in denial or purposely misleading Canadians, because the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report is clear.
Yes.
It costs Canadians more to pay the carbon tax than what they get back in rebates. But if the Minister doesn't believe me, I would encourage him to read the Parliamentary Budget report. But in the essence of time, let me help out. Page 19 states Canadians are worse off paying the carbon tax, period. That is the fact. But again, if the Minister is so confident that Canadians support this carbon tax, why are they so afraid to call a carbon tax election?
Because they know they're going to lose.
Climate change.
The member points to indirect costs, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about indirect costs. Loss of revenue of $150 million in 2023 due to flooding in farmlands across this country, Mr. Speaker. The dairy farmers, egg farmers of Canada, grain growers, Canal Council all support our plan to fight climate change. It's time for the Conservative Party of Canada to come
No, they don't.
Mr. Speaker.
These guys are just straight up lying. How is this even allowed?
No. Order.
Oh, there's going to be immense outrage today.
Get this, a new study recently released shows that 94% of Canadians are worried about the high cost of groceries. And with Thanksgiving coming around the corner, they're worried that greedy CEOs are going to rip them off when they go grocery shopping. Now, I get why the Conservatives voted against our plan to lower grocery prices. Their chief strategist is a chief lobbyist for none other than Loblaws. But why did the Liberals vote against?
Doesn't his brother work for
prices
one of these grocery store companies?
Greedy CEOs rip off Canadians.
Once again, I'm just going to ask members, please, to keep their voices down so that the chair can hear the honourable member, and those who require translation also be able to hear the interpretation. The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I thought the leader of the NDP would stand up and say thank you. Thank you to the Liberal government, Mr. Speaker. We have introduced the most comprehensive reform on competition in Canada's history. And I want to congratulate him for this contribution, Mr. Speaker. Today we'll have less concentration, we'll have more choice, and we will stabilize price in Canada. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, you should rejoice that now in Canada we have a grocery code of conduct, Mr. Speaker, that's going to help our farmers across Canada. That's going to help our small retailers. Mr. Canada, they should thank us to fight for Canadians.
Farmers across Canada don't want you to build it!
after 9 years, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. Canadians are fed up. Right. New PBO report, same results. Canadians pay more into the carbon tax scam than what they get back in phony rebates. An average Albertan family will pay nearly $2,000 in carbon taxes after this radical Liberal NDP government quadruples the carbon tax. That's why 10 provinces oppose the carbon tax scam. They know it's like the Prime Minister and not worth the cost. If they're so sure about this carbon tax scam, why not call a carbon tax election now so Canadians can decide to axe the tax for good?
That's right.
Look at that.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think everyone in this House and Canadians watching should take everything this finance critic says about the economy with a big grain of salt, Mr. Speaker. It is this finance critics that told us that if we paused our federal taxes, people in this province could save $1,000 without telling them that they'd have to drive from the North Pole to the South Pole, Mr. Speaker, to benefit from those wonderful savings. So I think we should all be very, very careful with what he says about the economy in this House, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
We won't take any lessons from that minister who let Jasper burn because of his incompetence. I'll send him
the national park.
That PBO's report with some diagrams and some pictures so maybe he can understand and flip over to page 19, table 3, that clearly shows a majority of Canadians pay more into this scam than what they get back in these phony rebates.
That's right.
2 million Canadians are going into a food bank in a single month. 1 in 4 Canadians are skipping meals because of their carbon tax scam. If they're so sure about this carbon tax scam, let's go to a carbon tax election now so Canadians can kick this costly carbon tax coalition to the curb for good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Honourable Minister for Family.
Conservatives are hyped today.
Development.
Mr. Speaker, we all suffer when we see that there are folks in our community that are struggling. And there is more work to be done, which is exactly why on this side of the House we continue to fight for Canadians, to fight for high-quality childcare, to fight for the Canada Child Benefit, to fight for the environment and the carbon rebate, Mr. Speaker. But let's not kid ourselves. We know that these programs that Canadians rely on would be in danger if the Conservatives had their way.
No, we'd all be a little bit richer.
Kent, Middlesex.
Today, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed again that the carbon tax costs Canadians more than they get back in rebates. And when the NDP Liberals quadruple the carbon tax, families in Ontario will be paying more than $1,400 a year in carbon taxes. This makes everything more expensive: gas, groceries, home heating. The NDP Liberal government and their carbon tax are not worth the cost. In fact, all 10 provinces are opposed to this costly coalition's carbon tax. So will the Prime Minister give Canadians what they want and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if you read the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report of today, you will see that he further confirmed once again that 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more in the carbon rebate than they pay in the price on pollution. And Mr. Speaker, it was also clear from today's report that the economic cost of pollution is not being factored in. And that cost is $34 billion per year, Mr. Speaker. And that does not include the billions of dollars that disaster mitigation costs. Every time there's a disaster in this country, it costs Canadian taxpayers. We are there in order to take climate action.
Hear, hear. Invite the Honourable Member from Edmonton West, please, to keep us count.
The Liberals are dead energy. Nothing. No enthusiasm from their side.
Kent, Middlesex.
Well, once again, Liberal logic is on display and their math doesn't add up. It seems the Liberals have a hard time with basic concepts like, reality or how money works. So let me make this really simple. Table 3 on page 19 of the PBO report shows what the cost of the carbon tax is. And I can send the minister a copy. The PBO says Canadians are paying more in carbon tax and GST on top of the carbon tax than they get back in rebates. And the reality is people have less money to pay for food, fuel, and home heating. Enough is enough. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election?
Holy smokes. And she's deadpanning looking into the camera. That is impressive.
For Public Services and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Enough is enough. 300 economists have said it. the pay rich more. The rich pay more.
He's like a
class Canadians pay
Quebec action figure that learned English for the first time.
Pay more than they receive. Middle class Canadians receive more than they pay. It's that simple, Mr.
It's that simple. No. It's costing us more money than it should. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, I really hope that you guys would smash the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet already. And I look forward to seeing you guys later on in another video. Bye for now.